Welcome to Section 3, Initial Configuration Tasks. Now in this section, we're going to take a look at first how to navigate and use the Server Manager console. We'll then spend some time in PowerShell and learn a few tricks about configuring your PowerShell environment. We'll learn how to manage local users and groups, and then we'll spend some time learning how to install, uninstall, and remove Windows features from the system. This video covers the Server Manager. We'll take a look at first navigating the Server Manager console. Then we're going to perform some basic administration tasks via the Server Manager. And then finally, we'll connect another machine to the Server Manager so we can look at some of the remote options that are available to us. So the first thing I'm going to do here is bring up my remote desktop connection from the previous video. And there's quite a bit of information here, so let's take it one area at a time. First thing you'll see is the dashboard here, and the dashboard will give you some options such as doing the basic configuration options on the servers, such as adding roles and features. From there you can drop down into the local server and get a bit more of an overview of what the current state of this box is, its name, things like that, and take a look at events. Now, once we get into adding remote systems, and if you end up doing that to administer these, you can click on all servers to get a list of all the machines that are connected and select individual ones to take a look at events and services and perform various tasks. Lastly, you'll see here file and storage services. This is essentially the console for that Windows feature. As you add features to the box, you'll see more things drop in here. So say you added IIS, you would see that you could manage your web pages from Server Manager, and really it's just opening up the administration tool inside a window here. So it really is a place where you can centralize a lot of the operations you may need to make on your system or even on remote systems. Now, over in the top corner, you'll see there's a refresh button here that will recollect the data. There's a notification area, so if we have any particular things that the server feels we need to address, you'll see that highlighted, and you can drop down and get a list of those and usually link directly through to take action. Here is a manage option, and this is to perform some basic management tasks on the server, such as adding and removing features. And then you can also add servers and server groups to the Server Manager. Tools is essentially the administrative tools folder moved up into the Server Manager, so you can see a lot of the same things here that you would see by going into that folder. This is some of the more common things that you're going to need to bring up when you are administering a Windows server. Then you also have View and Help. View just allows you to change the size of the text, and then Help, we can get more information there. So let's go ahead and do a couple of basic first steps here once the server has been brought up from installation. The first thing you'll see is this really ugly computer name. Now when you installed Windows, it randomly generated that computer name. So on any of these blue areas, you can click and go through to manage them. So you can see here it brought up the system properties where we would typically change the computer name. I'll go ahead and click on change here, and let's just call this Lab Server 01. Here you can also join a domain, but as we have not set up a domain controller yet, we're just going to keep this in the workgroup. I'll click on OK, and then we should receive, there we go. We have to restart this computer to apply the changes. So I'm going to click on OK and close. I'll be prompted to restart now. I'm just going to go ahead and get that done. And through the magic of editing, the server is restarted, and we are now coming back in to the Server Manager. And you'll see now if we go to the local server, it's going to do an update, and we should see the new name. And there we go. You can see now that the computer name is listed as Lab Server 01. We're still in Workgroup. Now we have some other options we can take here. I had already enabled Remote Desktop previously, but if you wanted to go in and make changes there, you can go in and do that here. You can enable remote management. This is something that we need to have enabled ultimately to allow us to add servers into the server manager. There's other things here. If you need to look for Windows updates, you can go ahead and click to the last checked for updates, and you'll see, I believe there are some waiting to install here. Take care of those outside of the video. To get to the options for Windows Update, you can go in and set the options for the active hours to look for updates, restart, advanced options here. So if you have other Microsoft products, say SQL or something like that, that you'd also like to look for updates on at the same time, you can go ahead and select that. Beyond that, changing your time zone, changing the security configuration for IE if you plan on using that on the server. These are all the main things you can handle up at the top. Now we also have a tasks drop-down, so if we want to go to PowerShell to the system or the computer management, or we can manage users and groups, or if you want to have a lot of fun and shut down the server right here and now, you can do that all from this console. Underneath here we should see events. So you can see the basic events that have happened. And under that, you can take a look at services. So if you need to start or stop any of your services, you should be able to see those here as well. The Best Practices Analyzer, this used to be an optional download you could grab from Microsoft. Now it's embedded into the server here, where if you are actually running a Best Practice Analyzer, you can see what it found on the server. So any suggestions for performance or blocking security issues, those kind of things would show up here. I've gone ahead and go to tasks and start BPA scan, and we'll go ahead and let it run and bring back anything that we may need to change. You can set up performance monitoring here as well, so if you want to configure those alerts and get further information, that's something you can do. And then here is a list of all the roles and features installed on the box, and you can drop into tasks and add and remove there. Now you also have the option to go up to manage to add those roles and features, and most of these things you can get to either through that manage or tools. So looking at events, we can also see here the performance monitor we can see here. This is just essentially a single point where you can get some of that information, but typically as you try to get more verbosity out of what's going on or dig deeper into the configuration, you'll be using this as a launch pad to get to those other areas. So let's go ahead and see if we can add a second server here that we can remotely manage from the server manager. Now I've gone ahead and configured the second server the same way as this one, where I have named it Lab Server 02. I've given it an IP address of 10.2.0.11, and now we do need to perform one other step. We need to actually open the firewall so that these machines can talk to each other, and then we have to make sure that the PowerShell remote access has been configured and the WinRM remote access so that we can manage that server. So here I have those PowerShell commands, and I'm going to go ahead and open a PowerShell prompt as administrator, and I'm going to copy these first two firewall rules. One is for the ICMP, so ping, and then the other is for the WinRM remote management. And we'll go ahead and run both of those. Looks like those went through, and then we're going to enable PS remoting, and then we're going to set the trusted host. Not necessarily recommended in a non-lab environment, but I'm setting the value here to all, so any of these systems should be able to talk to each other. If you are configuring this for typical management of systems, you'll want to have a set of trusted hosts instead of just having the wild card, so all the machines can perform remote actions on each other. So that's been done on this system and on the other server. I am now going to go back to Server Manager, and we'll go under Manage and Add a Server. And since we don't have Active Directory set up yet, we're going to try this by the IP, so 10.2.0.11. And if everything works out correctly, we should see Lab Server 02 pop up shortly. There we go. And now we have Lab Server 02. We'll double click to add it over to this Server Manager, and we'll wait for it to be added and refreshed. And it's completed. So now if we go over to all servers, you'll see that we have Lab Server 01 and 02. And if we drop down to 02, we can actually read the logs, we can check the service state, and manage some of the basic settings on this system the same way that we would on server 01 through the server manager.